Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hunter Mozingo, Associate Portfolio Manager and Research Analyst for Revere Asset Management, bringing you your daily market insight video here on July the 7th, almost 15 minutes after market close here in Jacksonville, Florida, 4:13 p.m. Eastern Time to be approximate. And today we saw the indices reclaim a major moving average, and that is the 21E. So we're going to look at those charts. We've also got two sectors we're going to focus on in today's video that are showing early signs of leadership. We're going to talk about that more in detail and what I mean by that, as well as check on those 6 growth stocks we talked about in Tuesday's video and see how they've kind of progressed throughout the week. Look at some other names that are acting well and do the whole usual tail of the tape, all that good stuff. So let's get right into what just happened. Like I said, all indices reclaim the 21E. That is very, very important here. So we got the S&P poking its head above a little bit yesterday, but it ultimately got rejected. And then today you got nice confirmation, definitive move above that 21 EMA. So we'll look at that on all the indices charts there. 4th green day in a row for the S&P as well. So something that's hasn't happened all that often this year. So performance-wise, we were certainly led by risk on today. And you can say, well, what do you mean we were led by risk on? Look at the top performing areas here, the G6, the Qs, and the Russell 2000. Usually when those are doing really well, that means risk on is performing. So G6 up 3.15, S&P up 1.5, Qs up a little over 2, Dow up a little over 1, mid caps up 2.14, Russell 2000 up almost 2.5, 60-40 up a little less than 1%, and protection up 0.29 to 0.44%. The reason for the disparity here is the dividend for the inflation protected bond fund we hold was posted at TD but not at Schwab yet. So that is the reason for this right here. So we also have some changes to the trend gauge today, as you can see, and a little bit of a change to the market state. So first with the market state here, we added short-term uptrend here as we reclaimed the 21 EMA. Again, 4 green days in a row, some strong price action over the last, or basically over the course of this week. And so again, correction is still here, but we do have this short-term uptrend added on. As far as trend gauge goes, market leaders moved to neutral today and short-term moved to neutral today with the little green arrow here edging towards bullish. And so if we get a second close, continued confirmation above that 21 EMA on the S&P, on the Qs, and the other major indices, you'll see this move to bullish, and market leaders continue to show constructive price action for the time being as well. Probably not too far from moving to bullish either. We are getting pretty close to the 50-day moving average on the indices. Qs are real close to it. So that's why you see this little green arrow here as well. But medium and long term still remain bearish. So some changes to the trend gauge, a little change to the market state, and in a positive light too. So let's go ahead and we're going to go to the tail of the tape. But before we do that, let me briefly highlight Revere, as I usually do in these videos, and for the main reason of just putting my email right here in focus. And that is so if you have any questions on anything I cover in the video, you want to know more about a certain stock, a certain level, a certain sector, you want to know more about Revere and what we do and what our approach is, you can always email me here, hunter@revereasset.com. You can call us, 855-732-5932, or email anybody here on this page, Merrill, Dan, Don, or Tim at revereasset.com. So let's get to the tail of the tape here, and this is the S&P on the right-hand side like I normally have it. So again, market state correction, but we've added this short-term uptrend. We have seen the put-call ratio come down a pretty good bit over the last couple of days. Got as low as 0.6-ish to 0.7 over the last 2 days, but finished around 0.8. But we've seen that come down a little bit. VIX also coming down off that 30 level over the course of the last few days, down to just under 26. And fear greed has moved up a tiny bit out of the extreme fear category and into the regular fear category. So we're kind of straddling the bull and the bear case right now. We broke that 21 EMA right here on 628, but we have reclaimed it, as you can see here. So we've reclaimed the 21, but we've only got one close above it. So we're looking for consecutive closes above to really kind of hammer down that bull case. So right now we're kind of in the middle. You want to see confirmation of that tomorrow. And tomorrow is important too, because we have a jobs report pre-market. So something to watch. Will certainly probably move the markets around a little bit before we open in the morning. What were we watching today? S&P versus that First support level 3750, obviously we had gotten back above that, and then versus 3800 at 3815, that was the support levels we were eyeing. We really didn't even get a chance to go test it. We just had a strong move up through resistance and that 21 EMA, as you can see here. Action wise, not much to say other than we opened up and trended higher pretty much all day. A very constructive price day in the sense that there was very little consolidation or pullbacks. Saw buyers stepping in pretty much throughout the course of the day. Low to high today, 38.59 to 39.11. As you can see, we opened pretty much right there on that 21 EMA, very close to it, and quickly got above it. And now we're at that 3900 level, which is also a big level to clear. Notes wise, gold down for the 9th day in a row, ties an all-time record. Performance wise, we ran through this already, but sector wise, very important here. Oils were up nicely today, but that did not inhibit the risk on area from having a good day. So SOC, semiconductors, software, IGV here up nicely. TAN, solar, what has it a good day today? We're going to talk about that more in detail. XME, metals and mining, biotechs, and then you've got communications, technology, and discretionary all having a good day. Bonds down, XLU down, and you have staples, healthcare, and real estate also lagging majorly today. So these staples, healthcare, and real estate actually finished just a tiny little bit green. So that's why they're in the yellow, but they did lag the other sectors and the other and the markets in general today. So the defensive areas taking a breather, not performing today. Portfolio wise, we did increase our beta. We bought 10% S&P 500, 5% IWO, that is small cap growth fund. Bottom line, we already talked about this, mentioned it a few times. All indices reclaim the 21E, and we're about to look at the charts of the indices here in just a second. Today's close 39.02 above that 21 EMA, and you can see the 8 EMA over here starting to hook up a little bit too, something to keep an eye on as well. So positive close today, back above the 21E. The 50-day is about 2% above us now on the S&P, so something to watch, as well as last week's high, or this high from this day here, which I believe is last week's high. So let's go ahead and we're going to get into the charts here. I'm just going to refresh this one, so hopefully it updates and give us fully accurate data here. So again, you had these 2 days here, last week, this week, that looked like we were about to break down, but we ended up closing at the very top of the range. A positive day yesterday, even though we didn't have the greatest close after the FOMC minutes, and then very nice follow through today above that 21E. So the S&P making a higher low, right? We didn't come back and break these lows we made around the middle to endish of June. So we didn't come back and test these lows. We put in a higher low so far and working on reclaiming these key moving averages. So not too shabby action today from the S&P, as well as the Qs, which have actually had some nice relative strength over the last 3 or 4 days. As you can see, I know that blue line's kind of hard to see here, but it's angling up pretty sharply. The Qs within just about a 0.5% or so of challenging the 50-day. They actually closed above, the Qs closed above the 21 EMA yesterday, excuse me, and today, again, strong action closing at the top of the range for the most part as well. DIA, the Dow, which has been weaker recently, as you can see by this RS line tapering off here. But again, back above the 21 EMA, back above the 8, reclaiming some of those key moving averages that you want to see. And again, all the indices have the same pattern of higher low, felt like we were potentially about to break down, but we didn't. And that's also something that happened back here in March before we had this big rally. So similar setup in the sense that we put in a higher low, felt like we were going to push lower, but we ultimately have not. And now you're getting some strong closes. IWM, one of the leaders today of the indices, up about 2.5. Again, definitively reclaiming that 21 EMA. And then mid caps, which have been weaker, end up closing right on the 21 EMA, just a tiny little bit above. But mid caps, again, you can see the RS line has not been very friendly here. But all major indices reclaim the 21 EMA. That's what's important for today. And now the question is, can they continue to build upon that moving forward? So let's get to some stocks. And the first thing we're going to look at is some stocks in a sector that I believe is showing early leadership characteristics. And we've talked about this sector in previous videos. So I just want to highlight a few names here first, and then we're going to actually look at the sector ETF. So this is Halo Therapeutics. It is a little bit thinner, but the point I want to make here is this is a biotech name that had a big breakout above this pivot here and actually held the breakout. That is very important because we have not been seeing breakouts hold very well in this market, and especially in a very risky sector, risky area of the market. So important to note, Halo, which has been acting very well, you see the way this RS line is looking, holding its move and its breakout above that 48.58 level. And another name that Don talked about yesterday, CRISPR Therapeutics, up about 7.5% today. Another day with big volume, back above the 200-day, above the pivot here of 75.42. So this biotech area and the biotech sector showing some early signs of leadership. And you might say, well, Hunter, this doesn't look that great. This has had a terrible year. It has an RS rating of 32, and it's below the 200-day moving average, and you are 100% correct. Sorry about that. But what is interesting here is that the RS line over the last, call it month and a half or two, is angling up at a very direct pace, as you can see here. So moving up really sharply and has continued to show relative strength even on pullback. So XBI, the biotech sector, there's another ETF called IBB, or this ticker is IBB, also showing some nice relative strength. And you can see the volume here as well. So big move to get back above this 80 level. It would not surprise me if this did do a little bit of consolidating after the strong move. But biotech showing some early signs of leadership off of the bottom and showing some positive divergence against or versus the S&P 500 and the indices. Moving along here, the next sector that's showing some early signs of leadership is the solar sector. And it's important to note that both biotechs and solar were some of the first areas of the market back in early 2021 to kind of have their bubble bursted and get hit really hard. So it's very important to note these were some of the first areas that got demolished and proceeded to get hit very hard over the last year and a half or so. And they're also starting to be some of the first sectors showing relative strength. So this is Enphase, one of the leaders in the space. Big move back over 200 today. And look at the way this RS line has continued to trend higher while the markets have been making new lows. Similarly, we see a very similar approach on TAN here, a very similar RS line. You see the way this RS line since May has continued to move up on the right side here. And that's what you're looking for in a bear market. You want to see RS lines that are angling up like this while the indices are still struggling and near their lows. And that is what you see here with TAN. It's trying its best to get above the 200-day, and then you've got the 78.82 pivot. This is an important one to watch here as it has respected this 50, put in a nice hammer here earlier this week, strong action today. So solar and biotech showing some early signs of leadership, RS lines angling up at a nice rate in both of those sectors. Moving along here, we're going to check on those 6 growth names we talked about on Tuesday's video. GTLB continues its nice action up about 5.5% today. Celsius, although it wasn't up majorly, it was green today. This one's a little bit extended on the short term, but this obviously continues to impress and make strong moves. Look at the way the RS line is moving up on this one. DOCN, Digital Ocean Holdings, another name that's acting pretty well. You can see did not make those new lows, back above the 21 EMA, back above the 8, pulled back yesterday, but kind of held up right where it should as today wore on. CrowdStrike, another name, one of the best acting former leaders from the 2020 market or 2020 bull market. You can see the way this one continues to trend higher, showing some signs of accumulation in its volume patterns as well. Sorry about that. Let's get SWAV up here real quick. So this is a medical name. You can see this one just buying its time here under 200. The moving average is catching up with it. This one, again, continues the RS line angling up while the indices have been struggling. That's the recurring theme we're looking for here on these stocks and these sectors. And then LI, which had a nice move above 40 today, ended up coming back in, but this is still nothing wrong with this chart. Just appears to be kind of consolidating up near this big 40 level. This is a big level for LI. So those 6 growth stocks all still looking pretty solid that we talked about. Here's 3 more that we haven't talked about, a little bit thinner on these names, but I want to point out this is SentinelOne. It's a cybersecurity company. You can see some evidence of accumulation in this volume pattern as well, and it's clear in the 50 today. as well as the 21 and the 8 staying above them. So a big move here, big move today to get back above that 50, stay above the 21E and the 8. So Sentinel 1, another name to watch. CFLT, a name that's had some really nice action too. Again, some signs of accumulation in their volume pattern and moving up a little bit here too. So nice move here, strong move today, up about 6%. And then one last one, I know I touched on this on Tuesday's video, but Roblox, another former leading growth name that has just been taken to the woodshed, but again, showing some signs of accumulation in the volume pattern, up about 4% today. So again, the growth stocks still showing some relative strength. They didn't give back all their gains, which is what we were concerned might happen after Tuesday's big day. They've held up relatively well, and for the time being, they still look nice and constructive. Also, we had semiconductors catch up a little bit today, have some signs of life. AMD back above the 8 after a brutal sell-off here. NVIDIA back above 150 and back above the 8 as well after a nasty sell-off. So some of the semiconductor sector coming to life a little bit here. On semiconductor, another name we've talked about a good bit, finally filled this gap going back to last October and had a major big update today, up almost 10%, back above that 50 level, back above the 80 EMA. And we also had oils up today, which surprisingly did not impact the strength in growth stocks or in the risk on areas. So oil stocks having a big up day. XOP, the oil and gas exploration ETF, up about 6. Oxy, which I believe is still probably the leader in the oil space, up about 4% today. But these charts still don't look the greatest, but they are trying to possibly repair themselves a little bit here. And so that is pretty much it on the good side of things. There's not a ton of bad today. There was really a lot of green out there in the market. Some of the laggard areas would be the healthcare space, like Bristol Myers Squibb, down about 1.5 today. LLY ended up being a laggard today as well, down about 0.5% or a little over. But you can see this is still a constructive chart, just a little bit of a laggard today. And one more name in the space that also looks good but was lagging today, UTHR, United Therapeutics, just down slightly. So nothing wrong with these whatsoever, just lagging the markets today, along with NOC, which continues to kind of have its problems. But you remember this big down day here, big reclaim day, down about 0.5%. But again, nothing necessarily wrong with this, just a little bit of weakness today. RTX, another name that was just basically flat or so on the day. Again, nothing necessarily wrong with it, just some relative weakness today. But again, not much to sift through on the bad side of things today. A lot of green out there in the market. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Again, those two sectors that are showing some signs of potential early leadership is TAN, the solar ETF, and XBI, the biotech ETF. And you can also go look at the constituents of those ETFs and see what those charts look like as well. So that is going to be it for this edition of your Daily Market Insight video. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.